we want you to take the pain out of funding, out of your numbers. So come in so that we can show you the right product at the right time. Once we have solved that funding need, the product and the team are driven to be able to showcase them other options that are going to help them as business owners.
Welcome back to the My Future Business Show. It's Rick Nuske. It's great to have you with us. I hope you're doing wonderfully well, and thank you very much for joining us. Now, if you've been listening to us for any length of time, you know what the show's all about. But if you're joining us for the first time this afternoon, welcome to the show. I know you're in for a treat. Now, on today's show, I'm excited to introduce Swoop Co-Founder Ciaran Burke. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Rick.
Now, I was talking to you leading up to the call, and we're going to be talking about a few things throughout the call, but you and I mainly are going to cover insights into your personal journey with Swoop, and we're going to be looking at your impressive amount of impact that your company has made. In fact, you've helped over 250,000 businesses unlock more than $2 billion in funding across 6 countries. I can only imagine how busy you are.
Yeah, definitely pretty busy, but I love what we do, so it's been an enjoyable 7 years.
Well, look, let's start by where you're calling in from today. I know you're traveling.
Yeah, so I'm currently in London, but as you mentioned, we've got 6 bases around the world. One of which is it's not in the beautiful McLaren Valley, but it's a little bit north of you. We do have a base in Sydney as well.
Fantastic. Look, I tell you what, Australia is a place to be, but look, there's a lot of beautiful countries around the place. But part of what today's call about, and just so people know, is we're going to take a deep dive into how we can help your clients achieve their funding results. Now, there's certainly a lot to unpack in all of that, but whilst you're traveling around, let me ask you a little bit about the things you like to do when you're not working. Do you get much time for yourself?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a sports nut. Like, I absolutely love sport. So I try and get as much sport in as possible. So I'm playing maybe 2 or 3 games of football a week. I'm not sure if paddle's taken off in Australia, but it's pretty rampant in London at the moment. So playing a good bit of paddle tennis. Actually playing a bit of tennis in Wimbledon tomorrow morning, which relieved.
Oh wow! Excuse me.
Should be quite nice. But yeah, my vice is definitely sport, and my real love is Aston Villa Football Club, who have been pretty good the last 2 years. Normally they're breaking my heart on a Saturday afternoon, but it's been pretty good the last 2 years.
Oh, I tell you what, looking after yourself is obviously going to be very important for somebody like you. At the top of the tree, you've certainly got to look after yourself. Tell me a little bit about what your day looks like. Do you get up? Do you do any physical training? What's your day look like?
Yeah, I definitely don't want to make any inaccurate statements. Like I'm definitely not. I'm not cracking eggs at 4 a.m. So
me neither.
I'm out of the scratcher at about 7 or so. Usually like to get into the office a little bit earlier when it's a bit more calm. As I said, like I'm huge into exercise and movement, so I will always make time for that. When I am traveling, I always try and make an effort to do local runs. I don't know if you guys have it in Australia, but there's this thing called Park Run, which is pretty nice vibe. They have it around different places around the world. Usually happens around 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
Yep.
5K run, all standards, but it tends to set the weekend off pretty well.
Yep.
Yeah,
I tell you, exactly. I reckon I'd be last in the field on that one. That's for sure and certain. But I'd give it a go. But look, I'd love to know, a little bit leading up to where you are today, and wind back the dial a bit and go back to your childhood. Where did you grow up? What was childhood like for you?
Yeah, I grew up in Dublin, place called Ranelagh. I still am super lucky. I've got incredible parents, and I've had pretty spoiled upbringing. So again, I would hate to come on something like this and pretend otherwise. Grew up in Dublin. Had just a fantastic time. Made some brilliant friends along the way, and kind of grew up not too far from where I was born, and then kind of went on to university again in Dublin before moving down under, actually. But yeah, childhood was, again, I suppose I feel like I'm repeating myself here,
No,
but
not at
Jesus,
all.
we packed the sport in. It was neighbors knocking through doors every day, kicking footballs out in the park in front of us.
I love it.
It was pretty religious on that front. And I've got two unbelievable parents and two cracking siblings. So life in the house was always great fun, very lively. As the eldest, I probably had to break down the barriers a little bit. Parents were a lot more stricter on me than they were my two siblings. So I definitely had to throw a few tantrums aged 10 to 13 to get to the discos and things like that. But
I love it.
Apart from that, it was glorious. Loved it.
I love this sort of part of the call because, business is fundamentally the same no matter how you slice it, but people's upbringing is a lot different every single time. So I do appreciate you sharing. Now, tell me, you've touched on your parents just briefly there. I wonder, in your early entrepreneurial years, who influenced you to take the direction that you've currently taken?
Yeah, I'm always kind of, I feel like, in a bit of a shadow to my dad. No bad thing. We we went to a school, and the motto was a man for others, and I suppose they were probably talking about higher people, but I very much don't really need to look much further. He is unbelievably selfless and driven and works so hard. So I've always kind of had that example from an early age. I even remember me and my siblings, we would get so excited just waiting for him to come home, but he obviously be working hard, and still to this day is got fingers in lots of different businesses and charities that he gets involved in. So I've always kind of had that as a bit of an observation. Now, that being said, there's a lot I definitely get from my mum as well. Now, while she might not be Dolly Parton 9 to 5, she definitely has a lot of other skill sets in her locker. If you ever needed an item of clothes brought back to a shop, there's no better woman, even if that item of clothes may or may not have been from that shop. She knew how to work customer service, and seeing her in action, she's a bit of a tour de force. So I've definitely tried to get the best from both of them, and I've definitely had some good role models on that front.
You know what? It's glad to see that the experience that you've had with your parents brings such joy to your face. But I wonder, when I was growing up, my first ever entrepreneurial experience was washing cars. Can you recall yours?
Yeah. Well, one of my really good mates was his father was a politician growing up. So when it came close to election day, we used to get paid to do leaflets, and you used to get I think it was like 10p or 10 cent per leaflet. So we used to be going as far and wide as possible to try and rack up these 10p's. And we'd love when we get to an apartment block, because you just get all the different envelopes, and then had some very weird and wonderful jobs around after that. I mean, there was anything around kind of promotions, events, always kind of handing things out, having to dress in silly costumes. I think I remember having to be a Santa once, and they didn't even have a beard, and I was about 17. Looked absolutely ridiculous. One time I was supposed to be dressed up as a pilot for Bank of Ireland again.
Oh no,
barely 18. But yeah,
would you fly with this man?
No, absolutely not.
Now, for the sake of context, I'm wondering if we can just share a little bit about, I guess, your educational background and professional experiences.
Yeah. After kind of completing my school exams, I went to a university in Dublin called Trinity.
Yep.
And went and did a course called Business and Economics and Social Studies. And I absolutely loved it. It was 4 of the best years I've ever had. As I was coming out of university, I had a couple of job offers around the place. I'd one in Dublin to be Paddy Power. They're a large kind of I think they're called Flutter Entertainment these days, but
Yep.
their marketing graduate role. And I also had a job offer with KPMG in Sydney. So I chose sunny Sydney over
Yes, I bet you did. Yes.
Tamp Dublin.
Well, it's interesting that you touch on KPMG. I mean, you've partnered with some pretty big names. I'd love to talk about your collaboration a bit later on in the call. But going
Yeah.
back to Swoop funding, what inspired you to co-found this organization, this business?
Yeah. Again, I'd love to say I was struck by divine inspiration, but I have to put a lot of that down to my co-founder. So I was building out a sort of thing called Hiive, which was like a LinkedIn for people in the creative industries. And when we were going and looking at financing, my dad actually introduced me to my co-founder, my now co-founder, Andrea, as she had a kind of corporate finance business at the time, which was helping businesses access finance. And it was a lot of it was driven. She had worked for the F1 team, McLaren, and she was helping a lot of their spin out businesses. Because they were engineering, need access to lots of pots of money, whether it was grants, whether it was equity, whether it was lending. And as such was building a really good knowledge base of where all these pots of money, but could also see that businesses hadn't a clue where to find them, what their numbers were, and were a bit lost sheep in terms of trying to connect it all. And Andrea very kindly helped me with Hiive and the financing on that side of things, so that we kind of started to get to know each other and got on super well. And so in terms of the nugget and the idea side of things, it was very much Andrea's idea of helping businesses and connecting them up to finance and access to finance. But I suppose I had the experience of building out a tech platform in Hiive, which was a two-sided marketplace between kind of jobs, crowdsourcing and production on one side and creatives on the other. And while we did look to use my development team that we built Hiive around, given our more limited budget when we started out Swoop, we couldn't quite afford the UK based engineers. So we found an amazing engineering team in Kharkiv in Ukraine that kind of enabled us to quickly get an MVP into market pretty quickly. But yeah, going back to your question, Andrea definitely had the idea. We really clicked as people, and I think I also could see from a tech side of things how we could bring the kind of idea to life from a product point of view.
That's fantastic feedback. Thank you so very much, Ciaran. Now, tell me, what's your core mission there? Put it into a bubble for us.
Yeah, it's very much one-stop shop for business owners. And what I mean by that is it's like one-stop shop. So we just want businesses to come into Swoop and stay with us. So the name Swoop, what it means, it's in one fell swoop. So we want you to come into Swoop and look and solve in one fell swoop. So what that means is take the pain out of funding, out of your numbers. So come in, engage with us, share the accounting or the banking information, so that we can show you the right product at the right time. Now, what does tend to happen is business owners will come to us because they're looking for funding, and that will be the first thing that we look to solve for them. But our mission is in one fell swoop, and we want to really stick with them over time. So once we have solved that funding need, the product and the team are driven to be able to showcase them other options that are going to help them along their way as business owners.
Now, I've seen your website. It's very comprehensive. You've done a great job. That's the first thing that stuck out for me, being an online type of guy. Tell me, what are the array of services, and is there one that's more popular than others? Which one comes up in the mix the most?
In terms of what comes to the top the most, is probably term lending.
Right.
The reason for that is it gives a bit more flexibility from a cash flow perspective, because typically the average term loan that a business will go for on Swoop is about 60 months or 5 years. So often that is kind of tends to be the product that people gravitate the most. Typically the one that has the least amount of security to it. So unsecured term lending tends to be the most amount of product, the most sought after product.
Thank you very much for sharing. Now, I'm wondering, given the variation of services that you do provide, do you have an ideal client? What do they look like?
Yeah, I know it seems a bit strange because there's like 250,000 businesses on Swoop, but I think where we really gel well with an ideal client and can have high impact on both sides of the fence is you've got to basically about 10,000 in monthly income. So maybe annually trading kind of between 120,000 and 15 million. And the reason for this is what we notice from a wider macro trend is banks don't love small businesses in the main. They're not set up operationally like they were 20 years ago, where you have loads of branches, you've got one-to-one relationship managers. They're more set up on a one-to-many operating model for small businesses. And then the rest of the business is geared towards the bigger businesses within the country. So as such, you've this kind of large missing middle of high volume trading businesses that are doing great things, but don't often get the time of day to sit down, chat with someone, analyze their numbers, see what financial products are right for them. And usually they're turning over between 100,000 and 15 million. And that's often where we see our real kind of ideal customer set. And we're definitely not picky in terms of sectors. We see strong representation across sectors within Swoop, whether it's in construction, retail, manufacturing, engineering, professional services. And what you find is certain products are more geared to people in different sectors. But it's kind of when we look at that kind of trading volumes, that's kind of usually where our sweet spot customer lies.
Is this kind of also like acting like a virtual CFO for SMEs? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I think we're always kind of striving to make that a better proposition. It's always been core to what we do. I think one of the first times it's really connected for us and for our customers was at the beginning of our journey when Andrea and I started out. We entered a competition in the UK run by the Competitions and Market Authority around open banking technology. And what they wanted to do was get fintechs in the UK to use open banking technology to make the lives of SMEs better and more competitive. So we saw this as a great opportunity to really showcase just how much SMEs are ripped off, because they are ripped off so much. So what we did was allow business owners to connect in their bank account and showcase all the things that they spend money on it and cross compare it to lots of other categories. And one of the areas we looked at was around banking and how much you could overspend just on fees and charges and FX. And one guy came to us and he was turning over maybe about 200,000 Aussie dollars, wanted $25,000 loan from his bank, but they said no because of affordability. But when we plugged in the data into from his bank account, we could see he was spending about $7,000 in fees to make transfers every month to a development agency he was using in Poland. And we were able to move those FX transactions away from his principal bank to an FX provider, Wise. We also noticed his business energy bill was up for renewal. So we were able to renew that, reduce the expenditure down there. And between the two of them, we were able to then find the 25,000 with an alternative lender, and the interest payments were pretty much the exact same of what we had saved him across the FX and the business energy. And for us, we were like, wow, this is so impactful. This is exactly what we want to do. And that kind of helped us kind of born out the virtual CFO concept. And what we've strived to do and still are, I would say, striving to this day is improve that and really try and bring more of that into the product. So we've got a fantastic data engineering team headed up by a guy called Don, who is data obsessed in terms of how we can use this information that we gather, organize it in the right way, cross compare it in the right way, and really layer these insights back to businesses. We've been very fortuitous that we've arrived in an age where artificial intelligence is accelerating massively, and that's really helping us in being able to offer a much better product kind of quarter after quarter. But we can just see from that one anecdotal example just how high an impact being on someone's shoulder and just giving them a little nudge here and there as to what the numbers are saying back to them, because often they just don't have someone in the organization, because of the size of business that they are, telling them these things.
What they need. Now, you touched on AI, and I always think about the human touch when people start talking about AI. I think it's wonderful. It certainly has its place, and it's certainly helping organizations do better, I guess. But also, there's always going to be that need for the human touch. Now, you've obviously got the data analytics and the layering of the data, but you've also got that collaborative approach with massive organizations, but also your clients as almost the go-between. How important are relationships in your business, do you think?
So important, and I think that's something you learn massively, and you continue to learn as a founder, the importance of people within your organization, and both the ones that you hire, but also the ones that you interact with, whether they're your customers or your partners, and the impact that you can have interaction is absolutely massive, both positive and negative, and you learn this viscerally as you go, and I think we're still massively learning in this area. But the one thing that it seems so simple, but it's only really kind of resonating and sitting, I'd say, with us, is just the importance of how you onboard a new member of the team into your organization, and really spending quality time with them about the things that are important to you, things that you want to be important to customers. And a lot of that comes down to those clutch moments when you do have a moment of interaction. You might not be always a front-facing person, but you might be working with partners, or you might be doing a piece of research. So you really want the product, but the impact that they can have on a business owner. And I feel like sometimes you just take it for granted, but actually spending time with people when you onboard them, you get this back in spades. And I know it sounds something so simple, but I think it's something we're only really properly learning now. But I think, people's ability to wield influence is incredibly important. Like one final example on this is, yes, we do a tremendous, I mentioned the fantastic Jimmy doing a tremendous job on getting people to the website and through organic and SEO means, which is brilliant. Mm-hmm. But a core facet of what we do, and nearly, I'd say 40% of our traffic, is partner-led. So we white label out our technology, and we sit in behind lots of interesting membership organizations, banks, accountants, accountancy software, comparison websites. And they will stem from relationships that we want to join up with your mission and our mission to help both our customers achieve what it is they're looking to do, namely usually access to finance. But the relationships around those partnerships are so important.
Now, you've just for the sake of context for listeners, you've worked with some pretty massive organisations. Who have you got? KPMG, Accenture, Coca-Cola, Canon, Gillette, HSBC, Microsoft, and the list goes on. How is it that you come about to establish these relationships? There's so much groundwork that must go into this.
I mean, I don't even know where to kind of take a step back, but we've got some amazing ones like you've mentioned, and some cool global ones like the Microsofts, and actually Australia has been an amazing hotbed for us for franchise partnerships. So we've spun out some brilliant ones with like gym franchises like F45, FS8 Group, or done some stuff with Baskin Robbins, Domino's, Subway.
Wow.
And I'm just trying to quickly get my brain to scramble as to what the kernel is, but I think I don't know. We definitely are opportunistic, I would say, as a team and an organization. So we're willing to say yes. Like, I'm actually just thinking now, we got an RFI in there from the biggest telco in Africa last week, and I was like, look, I
Let's
know
do
we're
it.
only in South Africa, but I think that's it. People looking at me like I'm absolutely insane. But yeah, I think it's a willingness to do it. The other thing we're blessed by as well is one of we are obviously you can tell from my accent I am Irish, but one of the wonderful things of our organization is we got backing at the very beginning from a state-backed VC in Ireland called Enterprise Ireland. And once you are part of that network, you're able to tap into an international network of development advisors who are based in pretty much every major city around the world. And it's definitely an unfair advantage and a secret weapon. And we use our soft power massively around Paddy's Day, and they have been amazing at making connections into different markets and different organizations down to the years. So it would definitely be worth mentioning that, because that definitely has had an impact.
Yeah, great feedback. Loving this call. I just love to go back put my my SME shoes on and say to myself, well, when would I continue to bootstrap, and when would it be time for me to consider borrowing capital? How do you decide that?
Yeah, so I think cash flow is always so important. So I know not everyone is an economist or an accountant, but actually starting to get familiarization with your numbers and to try and forecast, or at least work with someone that can help you forecast something. So like, what are the drivers in your business? What creates revenue? What are the costs? What costs are fixed? What costs are variable? Getting a handle on this will allow you to have these more speculative conversations around when I may or may not want to go for finance. A lot of kind of early SMEs will come with great desire and willingness to go for equity and get this big investor check and get all excited about it. But often a lot of businesses aren't suited to equity, because what the investor wants at the end of the day is outrageous or extraordinary growth, which it might be you're in a market or a market size that only has a certain capacity, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can build a fantastic business that builds you a great lifestyle, builds great profit, adds employment, but because it can't shoot the moon and get to a multi-billion valuation, it's never going to be on that equity path. And sometimes I can see business owners get a bit of misalignment when looking at equity, and can spend a humongous amount of time out there trying to find investors and find investment that just may not come. Whereas on the kind of lending or grants piece, it's more formulaic. If you, I'd say, like for the grant side of things, if you are developing a certain innovation in a certain sector or in a certain location, there will be, or there can be, grants that are matching up for those specific things. So it's important to always sense check that eligibility. And
Right.
similarly, from a lending perspective, again, it's quite formulaic. So if you are hitting a certain level of monthly recurring revenue, if you have a certain level of turnover, if you are a certain age, if you've hit a certain level properly, or if you have built up a solid credit score with a good securitized footprint, there are like equations to it. So it's kind of analyzing your situation in terms of who you are, what your business does, and what environment your business occurs in, and then that helps you analyze what might be the pathway across lending, across equity, and across grants. But always forecasting, I think, is super important.
I look at the fintech space, and I'm wondering how it's going to impact SME funding in the landscape in the future. In particular, the accessibility and the innovation that goes behind it. Can you see things changing even more? And if so, what sort of changes are you looking at?
Yeah, massively. Like, I think the accessibility point you made, Rick, is a really great one. Because I would say up until recently, there's just a real like I don't know what's out there. I know my bank. My bank says no a lot. So if I get the no, then all right, that's me done. I know I can't get it. Whereas in reality, there's so many options out there, but there wasn't like, how do I access it? Okay, and obviously I'd say come to Swoop, but that's not those, the practical side of things. But what's really interesting is you've got this massive wave of embedded finance. So this concept that you might be in your Shopify platform, your Amazon account, your Stripe account, and all of a sudden it's telling you, oh, by the way, you're pre-qualified, or you can get access to that. And I think as a trend, that's only going to increase and rise further. So whether business owners like it or not, in their day-to-day accounts that they do interact with, more and more they'll start to see this kind of pre-qualification element where different forms of funding or finance will become more apparent to them than they have been seeing before.
I've been listening to this, and we've talked about, funding standards. You've just touched on trends. It makes me think about, geopolitical questions and technology and innovations. And how is it that, you can ensure that you stay ahead of those trends and, I guess, set new funding standards for your clients?
Oh, it's so hard. Like, you get such anxiety, especially with AI, and it just changing at a rate of knots. So it's so hard, and like you're just kept on your toes constantly, and there's loads of stuff constantly coming. On one end, it's great because on the we're all about trying to get as much liquidity as possible to our business owners. So from the funding side of things, you're seeing lots and lots of innovations every single month in terms of new products, and it's our job to find them, connect them up to the platform, and get them there. And you just live in fear on the competition side of things that they're not doing something better and things like that. So, which inevitably they will, but we just need to keep on our toes and stay vigilant and stay creative.
And be prepared to pivot. Now,
absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about the $2 billion success playbook, and maybe share a case study with us.
Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely the thing we're so proud of, is just like seeing every day. Like, sometimes it's mad. You'll just go on and you'll be like, we funded like 30 businesses today, and it's just like that's just so cool to see. And but like sometimes then you get to see real behind the scenes when you learn about maybe even one of them. And there was one that really stuck with me from an early day was we have a tremendous guy that's the MD of our Irish business, Connor, and it was in our early days at Swoop. We used to do Friday wrap-ups. We had a kind of relatively small team, and we check in with everyone would share kind of what they did on the week. And he's like, well, I've just got the coolest message ever. And it was a business owner, and he's just like, can't thank you enough. All my employees have just gone home happy out, and they have no idea that I've just made payroll by 5 minutes. And it's those things. You're just like, whoa, that's proper impact. And obviously the other stuff, like the growth side of things, is deadly, and seeing business succeed. I think we were the first. We funded a Starlink into the Shetland Islands, which I thought was pretty cool. And like even doing things like outside the norm. Like, yes, we're in 6 countries, but I think we funded F45 gyms in 13 different countries, like places like Belgium, Germany, France, Spain. Not in those countries, but I think funded 3 gyms. One in Ibiza, one in Mallorca, and one in Seville. Like I love it.
Yeah, that's what a life journey. This is not just a job for you or a business. It's very special. I'm pretty sure of that. But tell me, when people want to onboard with you, how do you make an assessment as to, I guess, their viability for your organization, whether or not they need funding? What's the onboarding look like for you?
Yeah, great question. It's such an interesting word when people, when our engineers hear the word onboarding, I think they get like PTSD, because you're always
anxiety.
You're always trying to change it and improve it. But for us, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for the business owners, so they don't feel like they're adding too much. So we're always trying to tap into like APIs, whether it's like national business registers, so in Australia, like the ASIC, in the UK, company says. But ultimately, what we're trying to do there is get a kind of a base understanding, like how old are you, what sector are you in, how are you trading, are you profitable, are you not profitable, what's the balance sheet look like, is it solvent, is it not solvent, and from those very like on how you're growing and where you get your revenue from. But we're trying to do that by stealth in some ways. So we're not asking you to fill in all these questions, but if you give us the company name or you add the accountancy software, we can do all of that behind the scenes. But the reason you're doing that is to go, listen, this is what you're eligible for. And crucially, this isn't what you're eligible for, because God knows how much time is wasted on stuff that you're not eligible for. And it's frustrating to go and do something that you're spending a humongous amount of time with that you never have a chance. So what we've always said, whether it's on the people or the tech side, greatest thing you can do is give no's quickly and explain to them the rationality as why it's no and how it could become a yes. So that's why it's also important as part of that onboarding experience to give customers insight into their credit. How do lenders, how do banks view them from a credit footprint point of view? So giving them those insights and those nuggets is super important as part of onboarding, and then it's showing them what they are or aren't eligible for, and then it's using that same data set that they've given us to make it then easier should they want to look at any financial product to kind of pre-fill and fast track those applications into whatever product it is that they're looking for.
This is very exciting for those SMEs that are watching the show today that maybe have been feeling a little bit desperate up until this moment, and we're about to share with the audience how they can make further contact with you. But on a personal note, as we get to the pointy end of the show, Ciaran, how does it make you feel when you see how you're impacting people's lives and that they're improving from working with Swoop?
Yeah, it's massive. Like, because I've always had such a love for businesses. Like even like growing up as a kid, I'd always watch like shows like the Apprentice or things like Property Ladder or anything like someone going in trying to start something, build something. I'd like it's just a real love for it, and getting and seeing like every day someone getting funded, someone doing something, someone with they want to change something, they want to grow into something. And like what's really cool now is we're doing it in different markets, so you don't have sadly always the first hand example for it, but you'll see these videos come up on our socials of these places that you're funding or cafes that you're opening, or catering companies now serving more people. And it's like, this is deadly. I absolutely love this. So just to be in some minutia part of that kind of business ecosystem is something to feel pretty proud about.
I tell you what, this has been a very, very insightful call, and I'm pretty sure we've only touched the surface, scratched the surface, as it were, as to what we could talk about. We could deep dive into so many different products, so many different streams. We could talk about different industry sectors and how they might vary from one to the other. But I guess if people want to do this themselves and work out whether or not they should, reach out to Swoop, where are they going to go? How are they going to connect with you?
Simple one, swoopfunding.com. And you'll find us there, and you'll see all the different countries on the right hand side should you want to navigate to your particular country. But yeah, swoopfunding.com, you'll find it.
It's very easy. If you're on today's call, you've enjoyed what you've heard, you're an SME looking for a bit of funding, you're not even sure if you need it, reach out to swoopfunding.com. I'll be making sure that link's available to you below this post. No matter where you see this interview, you're going to be able to reach out to Ciaran and his team at swoopfunding.com. And with all that being said, thank you so very much for joining me on the My Future Business Show.
Thanks so much, Rick. Really enjoyed it.